Carrie Bennett is on the show again. I'm really excited to have Carrie back. So, she and I talked about cellular hydration in episode number 37. So, you can go back and check that out. We also talk about some practical quantum health strategies. We talk practical in this episode too. So, you can just kind of stay here. This time, we're talking more about the soul and this idea of the ether. So it was really a fun conversation to kind of connect all of these things where we're talking about light and water and how important that is to our healing, but from this soul perspective. So Carrie was the first person that I took a mitochondrial health workshop from when I first started going, I think cellular health is really the key. I think this is really important. So I took Carrie's mitochondrial health workshop that she did. And this was before I really got into applied quantum biology and started studying all of that. But Carrie is also an instructor at the Quantum Biology Collective. So that is how I've gotten to know Carrie and really enjoy learning from Carrie. So you can head over to Carrie B Wellness, Carrie Bennett's website, or follow her on Instagram at Carrie B Wellness. Yeah, and I hope you enjoy this episode. Carrie, I'm so excited to have you back on the show.
Kelly, I am thrilled to be here. I love chatting with you. You know that. So I'm so excited. Thanks for having me back.
Yeah, well, you always have such brilliant things to share. So it'll be really fun to see where we go on this because the last time I had you on, we went deep into water and
Yes.
why it's so important this water inside of us and cellular hydration, which I'm sure we'll probably touch on because I think that is really that's the antenna for what we're going to talk about today. But I wanted to go into talking about the soul and solar nourishment and what we mean and kind of a quantum perspective. Because when I came to you and said, I think I'm missing something, Carrie, and you said, check out ether. And I went, oh, here we go. Like, because all the pieces, I started the show to talk about alignment with the soul and we do, but I got really interested in applied quantum biology, and I not that it's not related, but I want to have a conversation that helps bring it all together for people if you think that's a good
Yeah.
place to go.
It's a great place to go. And it totally is, right? It's a missing piece in the applied quantum biology world that I'm trying to, bring to the forefront. But I love what you talk about in terms of like aligning with your soul's purpose, because that's really what we're supposed to be here to remember, what our soul came here for, basically, right?
Right.
Um, and I think that we've been either misguided or misled. And I think the lens of quantum biology provides, number one, a foundation for understanding kind of like physical body support that helps kind of maybe align us with our soul's purpose. I don't know if you've had this experience or you've heard of clients or patients, but it's like every time I align myself with natural light, right? The sun, morning time, gratitude, grounding, nature, I can't help but feel more in connection with both my soul's purpose, but also potentially the greater energies of the universe. And we can talk about, how different times have given this consciousness or given this energy different names. I don't like to nitpick the name. I like to more understand what's behind it. And so we can talk about that. But I think quantum biology is a way to get us remind us, yes, I have a greater purpose, and I have something a job that my soul is here to do. And then if you take that a step deeper, we talk about, well, what is quantum? And how might I be kind of aligning myself? Like, why am I tuning into that feeling every time I'm in nature, every time I'm in sunlight, every time I express things like gratitude and compassion? And that, I think, ties into our previous conversation, which is this water network in our bodies, right? Which we went into detail about, but just as a brief review, the water inside of us has structure. The water molecules aren't just kind of willy-nilly sloshing around inside of us. They're very much aligned. And when water molecules align and arrange themselves in a structured way, that creates a liquid crystalline state. And liquid crystals are antenna. And so our entire being, because 99 out of every 100 molecules inside of us is water, our entire being is an antenna for information. And so that is why, when I'm in alignment with the sunrise and my gratitude practice at that time of day, that's why I feel this deeper calling connection to my soul's purpose and, connection to God or to the ether, to the quantum field, because that water inside of me is literally picking up on the information that is in my environment at that moment. And so, I find this liquid crystalline understanding of our bodies to be really key in getting into maybe even that conversation of our intuition and connecting to that little voice that's just like, listen, right?
Yeah.
And my clinical practice has gotten a lot more intuitive based over the course of the past 3 or 4 years, but also my clients, I'm coaching them to listen to that voice, of that connection as well. And then lastly, we have to understand that this field around us, and that I think is what you were really yearning for in that applied quantum biology program, which was like, wait a second, I get all this stuff, but like, what connects it all? And that would be, expanding the conversation of the ether, which would be this field that I'm referring to of energy and information. So where do you want to go from there, Kelly?
I know. Well, I want to go into the ethers, but I think, but I just want to also bring it back to really practical, personal, because really, I've been interested in this stuff for as long, really in my teens, I would say, and then really in my early 20s. So years of kind of being on the edge of kind of understanding all of it. But what has happened for me, once I found quantum biology and applied quantum biology, right? And started really, even just on a faith basis, like I hear sunrise is important. I'm just going to try this. Something happens. And what is happening, I think, is more clearing and cleaning, and it's actually creating more coherence in our vibrational frequencies, right? And so it's strengthening what I guess those vibrational frequencies in our field. And I think then everything starts to click, starts to make sense, but you also just feel like a returning to yourself.
Mhm.
I don't know another way of explaining it. And I have tried every possible way to get there before that. And it was really surprising to me that it's just being in harmony with nature that has done it.
Right, because the body is, we're intelligent beyond all imagination, right?
Mhm.
And I always say that I don't ever heal anybody. Your body knows how to heal and bring itself back into alignment when it's provided with coherent energy and information. And that is nature, nature's vibrations. And like, so people don't get like kind of into the woo world, right? Um, which I love though, by the way. If you are in the woo world, I love that. But like, to bring this back kind of more into like, what is this? Where is this vibration coming from?
Yeah.
We just have to realize that every single molecule and atom in our environment is both vibrating and emitting light. And we can't perceive it, right? We don't have the senses for that. Like, I can't see the light that my cells are emitting. It's small. It's extreme low frequency light. I can't see it. It's all in the ultraviolet spectrum. And I can't hear the vibrations, right? That happens when I'm in a forest, and literally every single atom of every tree and plant and creature is vibrating, right? I can't physically sense it, but my body knows when I'm in a place of coherent energy and information. And it's like a tuning fork effect. That information can help tune my body back into frequency alignment. It's exactly what it is, because if I have let's say I have a receptor on my cell membrane that's a little bit out of alignment, it's not in the right shape, right? The water around the receptor receives the coherent energy and information from nature and says, oh, this is your shape. Now that receptor has the correct shape to vibrate, right? And then to draw the attention of the body. Let's say the immune system has to do something, or a hormonal gland has to all of a sudden like support that receptor, vice versa. it comes back into alignment. And it's just because my body is receiving the missing frequencies essentially. And the water is what does that change, because the water can help change the shape of things in the body. The water knows, it just needs to have the correct energy and information.
Right. Which is why I think so much of really mental health counseling, medicine, all the other, we were looking at chemical reactions and mechanical, and we're just missing this vibrational piece, the fact that we're electrical beings and this is all about vibration, is which is much faster. So it's not that that chemical, that receptor is there and maybe has a funky shape, or the chemical, the neurotransmitter or whatever it is can't dock or isn't docking, or there's misfiring or whatever that is happening, but it's because the vibrations, it's about vibration, not about
Right.
chemical.
Yeah. So it's, I call it missing information,
Right.
because at the quantum level, you can't separate energy and information. Every little wave of energy has information. And my body then takes that information and says, oh, it's morning. Now I need to start raising cortisol. Oh, it's later in the morning. I'm going to start optimizing serotonin and dopamine, right? My body knows what to do when the information is there. But these days,
Yeah.
our modern living environment is full of very confusing information. We talk about the the harms, the health harms, which they do exist, of non-native EMFs. And a lot of the quantum biology world speaks on, oh, it causes dysfunction to the mitochondria and they become dysfunctional, which happens. But think about the information that's being carried in radio waves and cellular radiation. The body's like, I don't know what this signal is telling me.
Right.
Right. And so the water is like, I don't know. Do we need to have the protein look like this or look like this? I'm not sure what that information is. And
Mhm.
so while it gets physically damaging to certain parts of the body, like the mitochondria, the information is so important. And so that's why I tell people nature heals. It's the information that is found in nature that the body can resonate with, as opposed to our modern indoor living.
Right. And that just reminds me too that I feel like so many people are confused when they come to work with me. They've already done all these things, but their bodies are so confused. And it's because it is literally confusing. It's not, it's not you, it's that the messages and the information coming in is confusing. And so then when we fix that with, and all the quantum health strategies I think are really helpful. For me, I kept saying the light, like, we are light, the light, the light. And so then when you added the ether, I don't know, tickler into my like, look into this, I was like, oh, the ether is connected to the light. So I
Mhm.
wanted to talk a little bit about
Yeah.
that.
Sure. So like the ether is this really it if we think of these vibrations
Yeah.
in terms of like maybe amplitude or intensity, the very finest of them is in this realm of the ether or the quantum field or divine consciousness, right? All these different beautiful names for it. And the ether is how light forms. Light actually vortexes through the ether. In fact, the ether is the source of gravity, if we wanted to go there, because as ether implodes, and ether will implode into anything that has sacred geometry, and that's, believe it or not, our atoms. The nucleus of every single one of our atoms is arranged in a sacred geometry, platonic solids too. So we have to understand that we're physically here in this body that we sense and in this physical environment because we're always interacting with the ether. It's always basically imploding into us. And as ether implodes, gravity forms. As that ether then decays, light is emitted. And so we're literally grounded beings of light because of the presence of this ether. And I find that just to be so amazingly fascinating. But what
Yes.
you add then this last little bit to it, which it's just the tip of the iceberg of what I'm learning, right? I'm certain there's so much more I don't know. But the ether is actually responsive to thoughts, emotions, our consciousness, right?
Mhm.
And so that's what I found to be the most fascinating thing is, oh, basically how I'm interacting with this source of energy and information is the most fundamental source of energy information that can become light, that provides my body with this sense of being grounded. It literally is nourishment, like energetic nourishment to my body. If it's influenced by my thoughts, my words, my environment, who I spend time with, what videos I choose to watch or don't engage with, like if it's that responsive, if to that, then I am in so much control of how well I'm allowing this information to kind of enter me. And it can either enter in what we would call in very organized way.
Mhm.
It can literally create a vortex implosion, right? Like this, the most beautiful self-organizing implosion into us, which would be synonymous with health and healing and vitality. Or it can actually kind of implode in a more destructive way, which isn't as good, right? That's more chaos inducing, more chaotic for the body. And
Mhm.
so um, it implodes very coherently when we're in certain states, which would be gratitude, compassion, love, all the stuff that we hear about is being healthy for our bodies. And then if the worst one, I think, for the implosion of this is the state of fear. Um, and most people are like, well, every once in a while I'll get angry. That's fine. You can get angry every once. You emote. That's beautiful, right? Or every once in a while I'll get really frustrated. Beautiful. You
Right.
emote, right? You emotions are important.
Yeah.
But the one that I think that is being very much contrived in our environment with the news, with the state of the world, is fear, is living in this constant state of fear. And so I think if we can recognize that and then maybe choose how we can modify our environment so that we don't live in fear, it does, and we can start to maybe live in more gratitude. Those two practices right there can work wonders for allowing this self-organizing energy to again coherently organize and implode in us, so we literally get vitality. This is the source of chi and prana, vital energy, all of the words that we've heard in various ancient civilizations or esoteric practices or even modern practices that have more ancient origins. I mean, this is what we're talking about. And we have
Mhm.
to recognize how important our environment, our thoughts, our words truly are to the
Ooh,
status of this vital energy.
words too. Yeah, I've
Hmm.
noticed that. I have a device for through Heart Math Institute, and so I can
Hmm.
actually like say words and see where there's coherence and where I
Yeah,
go
yeah.
incoherent. It's very interesting because words that I actually really like weird or crazy or some fun to me, I can see that it literally is creating an incoherent pattern in my
Interesting. Yeah,
yeah.
totally,
I know.
totally.
So you really start to pay attention to those things, not in a like make yourself crazy way, in a
Mhm.
very I have control over these things of what I say, what I think, and where I'm kind of I love this topic. I think it's really amazing. I think it makes a lot of sense scientifically because just to say, well, light just exists and we are light and light's there. Well, what's the medium? Like,
Yeah.
it seems like this answers that question scientifically. But where I'm going right now is, we're so unique. Like, where is the soul? Is that separate than this? Because I do feel like we are a body dropped into this soul,
Absolutely.
right?
I agree. I agree. No,
Yeah.
I agree. I agree completely. And like, listen, I contemplate and meditate and think about these things, right? And I don't have a perfect answer for that. But what I've kind of realized is that my energy body, this kind of extension of my physical body, is really where a lot of my
Yeah.
solar activity takes place, right? Like you said, this I'm a physical body and my soul is bigger than that. I think I have the ability to, through my soul, connect with, I mean, basically connect anywhere in the universe, any place I want to. If there's we have these wild capabilities, right? If we only realize how beautifully how beautiful our bodies truly are, both mind, body, spirit, soul. And so yeah, I think our soul is part of our physical body, but it extends out. It's like this outward extension. I
Mhm.
feel like it's a higher level of in my like a more intelligent aspect of my physical being that just it knows, it has the answers, it understands where I came from, it understands where I'm trying to go,
Mhm.
and what I do know also is that, and this is coming from me, Kelly, you know this,
Okay.
the answers for that is not found in a book, right? I could read as many books as I want or listen to as
Right.
many podcasts as I want.
Yeah.
I need to connect it in stillness, and it's hard. I'm
So
not
hard.
saying we have to practice meditation necessarily, right? Like, but
Mhm.
I think it's a great thing to try to work towards. It's very hard. I mean, that's maybe more advanced, but I do think that one of my favorite practices is kind of sitting outside and daydreaming. Like, no agenda. I'm not trying to multitask something. I'm just there. And that's where all of a sudden, like my brain can shift into these different layers. If I'm lucky enough to also just maybe sit in silence, like I have a little space here that I like to sit, do some silent sitting. I don't call it meditation. That puts too much pressure on me, I think. But if I can just sit in silence here as well, again, it's like just allow things to come. That is where I feel like the true communication can take place, is when are we just be. We don't do. We can just be, which is not easy, because like it's like I have this whole list of you should be doing, should be doing, should be doing, should be doing, and it's just I've learned that that is not as important as taking these 20 minutes and just being.
Yeah, I've sort of said that in a couple of posts, maybe not that directly, of just I never regret just going outside. Like I will if I think, "Oh, I just don't have time. I've got to go do that." I'm like, if you just pop outside and listen to nature, just even hearing birds for a
Yes,
minute helps
yes,
your nervous system. It's very so
yes.
and I think as a mother, as a parent, I don't think there is anything more helpful than taking some space for silence, whatever
I,
that.
I love it when my kids tell me they're bored. I love it. I love it. I love it. Right? Because it's like awesome. That's exactly. I'm thrilled that you're bored, right? Because now you're in that space, and who knows what comes to you? It could be your beautiful imagination figuring out something to do, or you could just learn how to sit, and that's okay too. I don't need you to sit still, right? You could be jumping on the bed in boredom. But I do think that that's an important place to be, and I think as a parent, I like to model. I try to
Mhm.
model what I want my kids to maybe learn and also ultimately do in life at some point. And so if I can just take some time and sit, or instead of like I used to be notorious for washing the dishes and listening to a podcast, right? Or it's like
Mhm.
there is that idea of mindfulness and just being in the present moment that I think also connects us to this uh our soul, this extra layer of energy and information um that's trying to communicate with us, right? It is us, right? But the communication pathway is not always there. I think dreams are another cool way. Like I love it when my children tell me they're dreaming, or my clients who weren't dreaming before, they don't remember their dreams, they don't think they're dreaming, and then all of a sudden they're having these vivid dreams. It's like that's a good sign,
Yeah.
right? It means you're allowing your body to get into that space where potentially, there's a lot of information about lucid dreaming and just kind of being able to
Mhm.
um work through things in life through dreams.
Yeah.
So it's just some interesting ways to do it that don't necessarily involve the pressure that I felt initially of meditating. Just kind of baby steps into this idea of
Right.
what is my soul, and how the heck do I
How do
how the
I
heck do
align?
I yeah, exactly, align with whatever I'm
Like,
supposed to be doing,
just
right?
could be quiet and I could just go outside for a minute and I can, yeah, just,
hmm
yeah. Because I do think you're right. I think meditation, people think that you have to be doing it a certain way or that there's a right way to meditate. And I have not found that. I've found that anything that you do, like a conscious breath in and out, is a
Yes.
meditation. So,
Yes.
just to
Yeah.
yeah. Well, and I also find that it's very interesting the things that come to me, not just come through, but then what you happen to see or
All these
the
coincidences.
coincidences that come up. And it's just amazing. Even if I'm, like, oh, I've got to post on YouTube, I'm behind. And so I'm over there. And then next thing you know, what I'm watching is I don't know if you've seen an interview with Dr. Gladys McGarry. She's known
No.
as the mother of holistic medicine. You'll like this.
Oh, cool.
And so she was originally one of the doctors that created the American Holistic Medicine Association. And she's 103 and she's amazing, right? And she's talking about how all healing is comes from within and that healing is about love. And so just what we've been talking about, this the opposite of fear. And she said that's really what's creating so much of the problem for people is fear, which we know. But what I loved is she said that it took them 2 years to come up with how to spell holistic medicine. They were kind of coming back and forth and they decided there were a couple other elements, but the holy and holistic needed to be emphasized. And I thought that was really it just stood out to me that and so this is what comes when you're quiet and you're not actually trying. I wasn't even trying to learn anything that day, right?
Yeah, but it comes to you. I have that experience so many times where it's like randomly I'll just pick up a book on my
Right.
shelf and just randomly open it to a page and be like, ah, needed that one. Yep. Okay. Right. Awesome.
Yeah.
Just read a paragraph or something. And it just all yeah. And also this idea of as you kind of open up to this, I think part of it is just like acknowledging like this is a thing, right? Like I have deeper ways to communicate with like my intelligent, like my higher intelligence or the world around me, or I mean, we could call them guardian angels, even you could call it spirit guides. Like there's lots of obviously we could call it a lot of different things, but I think it's there. We just have to be open to it and almost like make the statement, I'm receptive, right? And as soon as I started realizing that I kind of had to like open up to that, like this mail slot, like it's right here. And I know exactly, it's just like ping, like I'm in a session with a client and they're talking to me about, their condition, and all of a sudden I'll get a ping and it'll just be like, I want to bring up what pinged, right? I want to bring this up. It's like, does this resonate with you? Oh my gosh. Yes, it resonates with me. Yes, that's where I think I need to go with my body. And that's where I think what my body is asking for. It's like, it's this beautiful, just intuitive trust and communication that can happen if we're receptive. Otherwise, I could have been like, that sounds foolish. It's kind of stupid. Why would I be getting that thought right now? And like that's
Um,
and so it's just this beautiful, I think it's just like this beautiful way of our body, our greater intelligence from many different sources, whether it's true source energy from the ether, whether it's guardian angels, whether it's you know
mhm.
your relatives who have passed. I think everyone is always, I think we have these energies that are always trying to support us, from our own bodies to other energies. And if we're willing to be open and realize that we are designed by our liquid crystalline antenna bodies to be receivers of this information, if we allow space for it, gosh, it's powerful and empowering. I mean, it's just
Yeah.
it takes away the need to always search and search and search. We can kind of go inside and maybe just sit for a little while.
Right. Yeah. So how has your life changed since this has become sort of your normal?
Great question. I think step one, that I'll lay out my progression, right? I've never laid this out before, but here's my progression and that I'm thinking of it.
Mhm.
I started diving deeper into these things during COVID, right? Like I did a lot more searching, for information during COVID. And I started actually seeing a lot of fear, right? Like this, just every message was fear, 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 fear.
Yep.
And I didn't have an opinion about it at the time, right? I was like, not sure, right? Do we need to be fearful? Don't we? Like, what's going on? And I started that all at the same time. I started getting just like books and articles to my awareness about this idea of the ether, of connecting to source, divine, God. I mean, like kind of like this marrying of science and spirituality. And I started seeing these two parallels of like, I wanted to know what was going on and I wanted to get into that. Like, I wanted the latest article. I wanted to know what was happening. Blah, blah, blah. And at the same time, I was just like, that I don't think that's the healthiest thing for me. As much as I want to know, I don't feel like that is really what's providing health for my body. I started to actually get kind of anxiety. Like I'd never had it to that extent before. I was like, wait a second, what's going on here? And so I started to make the connection that I started to detach myself. I would know, but I wouldn't attach any emotion or anything to it. It's just like, okay, I see what's going on in the world, but I was able to like take a step back and just kind of hold space with what was going on. And then I'm starting to understand even um the fact that at this quantum level, at this ether level, everything is connected. We are literally one, right? Like we're in this medium together. I am connecting with you right now, Kelly. Like, we're literally connected through this. And so I thought to myself, if I'm connected, if we're all connected, and if my emotions are influencing what's happening in this medium and what's happening around me, gosh, that fear is not serving me and it's not serving anyone else on the planet. I don't want, I chose not to pollute the space around me with fear. And I also chose not to judge people for their decisions in all aspects, from whether they were heads of governments or organizations or my next door neighbor, right? So like, because we're all one, like I don't want to judge. I don't want to talk bad. I like, it just really made me take a look at my life and my world and say, gosh, okay, I have a little bit more compassion now. I've got a little bit more distance from the fear. And I kept on building and building and building on that. And now I'm just at this extent where the extent where I feel very resilient, just kind of in this state of knowing, right? Like, yes, things that might be fearful in the world or might be fearful in my life might pop up, but I also know that I'm connected to this beautiful source, this energy around me, and that I can really do a lot of support for my physical body and my mental body, my soul, by kind of recognizing it, but also bringing it back into the things that we talked about. So it just feels good. It feels empowering. I don't want to talk badly about people. Not like I was a big gossiper, but it's just, it's sometimes it's easy to kind of get into that. Did you see what she was doing? And now it's just like that. I just don't, just doesn't resonate with me. And then these are just fun things to be able to look back on and be like, wow, this space that I'm living in right now feels really, really supportive and good on a lot of different levels.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I'm guessing that's really improved your relationships and probably
Yes,
everything in your life.
all of it, right? Because it also made me really realize which relationships were worth pursuing versus which ones I could kind of say, wow, we shared some amazing memories. I've got great times with these individuals, but this no longer serves me, right? And it was okay. It was perfectly fine. It didn't have to be some big blow up or some guilt trip or, oh, I should text so and so. It's like, no, it's like, okay, now I kind of know. And so perhaps my social circle shrank a little bit, but I'm perfectly okay with it because I feel so nourished by the people who are in my life, and I'm hoping I'm supporting them in the same way. So
Well, yeah, I'm sure that you are. And I also think, it's just funny because your circle closes when you start wearing funky glasses to everything and you're always covered up at night. And, it's like our behaviors start to, people are like, okay, that one's a weird one there. Um, and your circle starts to grow with the other blue blocking wearing people. And so it's just interesting how there's a time where it's kind of getting smaller and then it's just getting richer on the other end of that.
that's ether though, because
Yeah.
with ether, right, things have charge and the ether has to implode before it can radiate out. So that's exactly what happens, right? I'm basically kind of centering what's important so that as I organize and really center what's important, then I can radiate that out. And that's when it comes back to me, right? Like that's that idea of
Right.
it coming back to me in this toroidal flow that's happening all around me. So really, I love the way you describe that because it's exactly what it feels like.
That's, yeah, I was just thinking, okay, so that's what people call law of attraction. Like
Very
that's
much.
what's
I think so. Yeah,
right.
absolutely.
But, I understand that sometimes people are like, oh, that's just too woo. But I think the fact that we are light, like it's just, and that we are water, like light and water. If you can't grasp anything else, just attend to that in
Mhm.
outside of yourself, but mostly inside of yourself.
Yeah, as you work physically on the water, inside of you, which, go listen to that other podcast, right? As you
Yes.
physically work on this beautiful structured water inside of us, meaning it can help, working on the structured water can help rid ourselves of impurities, right? Things that could be messing up the alignment of our liquid crystalline bodies, things like toxins of heavy metals. And, we can do a lot of physical support by understanding the water and the light as this signal. Light is information. And if we I love what you talk about, just go outside and just check in with the light, hear the birds. That's a great strategy, because a lot of people go outside and it's like, I don't live in nature. I live in a big city. But do you, right? Because you're hearing right now the car horns honking, and you're hearing the traffic, and you're hearing the construction noise. But if you actually start to tune it the other way, you can start to hear the birds. You can start to hear the wind moving through just the little bush that's outside of your office, right? You can start to hear these things. And so that's such a key, such a key thing that you said, that I wanted to just kind of emphasize, because I think that's very, very important. But yeah, sorry, Kelly, where are we going? I went on a tangent
No,
because
I like that because it brought it back to kind of more practical, because I think that's what people
yeah,
like. They're like,
the
okay, this
light,
is
the
great and
water,
everything,
yeah.
but like, what do I do? How do I get this light and this water inside of
Hmm.
me? How do I nourish that? And so you're giving
Hmm.
really practical examples. And even for people who are like, no, I don't live in nature, or no, I'm not an outdoorsy person. You don't have to be. It's actually, you are in nature. So you are nature.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, you are nature. You live in, unless you live in an underground bunker, right? That's all
right.
steel walls 24/7. By definition, you will interact with nature, even if it's just opening your window. So absolutely. And so yeah, the practical, the really practical takeaway, I think, for this is get in the sunlight, tune to nature, right? So tune that antenna to hear nature, touch the earth, and anything growing in the earth with bare skin whenever you feel like you can, because you get energy and information that way from the earth. And then I also find I can't overemphasize this idea of just sitting still and in silence.
Silence. Yeah,
It's
I think that's really important because we didn't talk about that last time, that
Mhm.
just getting silent and then tuning. It's this tuning.
Yes.
And yeah, like the tuning forks, like that, just tuning. And I also think it's the really truly looking for what's right in your environment, like what is good.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. It's tuning into what's good. It's acknowledging that we don't necessarily live in a perfect environment all the time for, and that's okay. But even little things like this plant,
Yeah,
this plant has been with me for almost 20 years, right? Like, this is my buddy back here. And so the reason why I have it in the background of these videos is because it's just a reminder that even if I'm not out in nature, I have nature near me. And so it's even little things like that
that's true.
can make a difference. And
Yeah.
and then the last one, I think, here with this one, again, this might be too much for people, because I don't want anyone to spiritually bypass traumas, right? I'm not talking about that, but don't underestimate gratitude. Even if it's, I'm grateful for this meal that's in front of me. I'm grateful. I'm grateful that I got to work on times, expressing gratitude in tiny, tiny little ways,
Yes.
in spite of maybe a very chaotic upbringing or some major traumas. If we can start to just express that gratitude, like you said, what we're doing is we're putting a frequency out there. And if anyone wants to look into what that frequency could visibly look like, look into Masaru Emoto's work and
Yeah.
how the water crystals take these beautiful shapes with gratitude. And so if you realize that, wow, I have water in my body, it is aligning itself based on emotions. And if I'm regularly expressing gratitude, I am aligning my water molecules into this beautiful antenna, which is exactly what these crystals do, like this beautiful antenna, these shapes. And because shapes attract frequencies, just as two tuning forks tune to the same note, if I strike this one, right, if I resonate this one by structuring my water into gratitude, if I resonate this tuning fork, if I strike it, this one has no choice but to vibrate as well. That is this idea of the law of attraction, right? I am structured in a way and vibrating out a frequency that puts me in closer contact with other things in my world with that specific frequency. And so whether it's just at the end of the day, my mitochondria are a little bit happier because I've expressed gratitude and less stress throughout the day, or whether it's because I can actually physically use that as a tool for manifestation, which a lot of people talk about, right? There's a whole online space on manifestation.
Yep.
It happens through this water, the emotions, and this field. And if we can just kind of wrap our brains around that as well, it makes a difference. It really does. And I've seen it time and time again with clients too. And lastly, Kelly, what's interesting too is I think a lot of people are like maybe coming at this stuff from maybe a healing journey, right? Like I have fibromyalgia, whatever it might be, anxiety, depression. And I want them, and they're like looking like, well, how do I help my body? Like what treatment do I need? I always tell clients they have to work within what resonates with them, right?
Yeah.
So if this information doesn't resonate with you, that's perfectly fine.
Yes.
Or if maybe one aspect of this, it's like, oh yeah, I like morning light. I could get into morning light more. That is how your body will guide you. Then you're in morning light more. What are you now resonating with? Oh, you want to sit under a tree and listen to the birds? Great. Go now sit under a tree and listen. Like that is really an antenna that you can use to support your body as well. It's true of healing. It's true of just, being in a state of kind of just this natural state of thriving. It's just, you have to be in resonance with that. And
Yes.
you listen to that resonance, trust that intuition and that resonance to guide you.
Yes, I'm so glad that you brought that up. So two things popped in my head. One, that this is actually relatively quick, and that gratitude is one of the fastest ways we have to actually turn people's perspective around to help them feel, especially in depression and anxiety and the more mental health. So any little piece of gratitude, even if it doesn't seem like it's a something, it doesn't matter what it is, it's the feeling of gratitude, not the thought necessarily. The thought
Yes.
has frequency, but the feeling is going to be what really creates that frequency
Right.
vibration that we want. So there's that piece, and then the resonance, right? So if it resonates with, it's kind of like when you read something about parenting and you're like, oh, that's a good idea, but you can't pull it off because it's not that it's bad, it's just it's not really resonating. You keep forgetting it or trying it and it doesn't work or whatever it is, that it's not for you. There's something else. It's okay.
Mm-hmm.
There are many others. So healing, I find, is the same. There's so many different ways to tap in. But yeah, gratitude is one of the fastest. So
I love that extra information on that. That's beautiful. And I'm not surprised that it is one of the fastest because of how it transformed those water molecules so beautifully.
it
So
does. Yeah. And I love like the studies where they're talking to the rice and then you talk nicely to the
yeah.
rice, and then you talk mean things to the rice, and you can physically see what happens to the
And
rice.
it goes a step further too. There was 3 containers, right? So this is Masaru Emoto's one of
That's
his
right.
research. So Masaru did show that gratitude and love created the most beautiful what are called water crystals. So picture almost like little tiny, tiny snowflakes in frozen water. And so those were creating some beautiful water crystals, whereas feelings or words or emotions such as fear, surprise, surprise, and hatred, created no crystals. It wasn't even just that they were ugly crystals. It was just like
There's just none.
it's just like blobs, like amorphous, right? There was no rhyme or reason to the water at that point. And then he took this research and he did another experiment where he took these glasses that were full of rice, and it was rice and water.
Yep.
And each one he said a specific thing to every single morning. The first one was, I love you. The middle one was, you despise me, I hate you. And then he completely ignored the third one. And by the end of the experiment, the one that had the love actually was fermenting. It was creating this rice vinegar fermentation, all these healthy bubbles and probiotics, and the rice still looked good. It was a natural fermentation culture, which would happen. That would be ideal. The middle one was just brown and nasty, and this was like getting kind of
Moldy
moldy.
and yep.
And the one that was ignored was the same way. It actually also became completely felt the neglect, and it developed the mold and stuff. So even just it being like ignoring something also can have that. So we really want to emphasize the idea of expressing and feeling gratitude, because sometimes you can listen to this and be like, "Oh, okay, yeah, I'm going to ignore this," but perhaps this is what your body needs in order to um, allow for a healthy fermentation, a healthy healing, a
Right.
healthy process to take place in your body. So, fascinating experiments. With
Right.
water, with thought, with emotion. Um, I just can't. It's just been so life changing for me in so many ways, Kelly. That I just want anyone who resonates with it. I really want them to kind of think about this and how they could implement these things in their life, because they're oftentimes very simple, but they can have a very profound impact.
Yeah, because like we started, it helps you align with your soul or whatever word you want to use for that.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely, because as you're putting out this coherent energy, you're naturally drawn to kind of the next opportunity or the next step or the next book that all of a sudden just enlightens you or whatever it is, right? It's how we all got here, right? Didn't
That's
we
how
all
we
get here
all
in
got
quantum
here.
biology this way, right? It was like just the next thing and the next thing. And it's just like as you continue to allow your body to kind of evolve with nature and with the signals and the intuition and the resonance, it just naturally feeds forward on itself. And I believe that believe so many I've heard so many people saying through like learning more about quantum biology, whether it's in the structured program that I co-teach or just in private community, where they say, gosh, this is it. This is what I was searching for, that I want to share with people and teach people. And it's like they're finding such resonance with this because of exactly the process that we just described.
Right. I always say if you have the courage to take a step, your path will rise to meet you.
Oh,
That
beautiful. I love it.
I mean, it's truly sometimes it's just the courage to take a step
Mhm.
in any direction. And then but it's the listening to the intuition and
Mhm.
following that guidance. So yeah, this has been a really fun conversation. Is there anything that we missed that you wanted to share with people because yeah, I really appreciate that you talk about your own experience.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I don't think we missed anything. And I do want to tell people that it's like I think that science and spirituality need to come back together. And I'm so grateful for podcasts like this because I think you're bridging that gap so beautifully. And I just think, I want people to realize that they don't have to be mutually exclusive like they've been treated for so long. And I just think the
Right.
lens of quantum biology and the ether allows us to kind of marry the two beautifully back together to understand this kind of greater concept of healing and health. So thank you for this opportunity.
Right. Yeah, I love the bridge. We're building the bridge. We're and I appreciate that you're helping to build the bridge. So I yeah, thank you, Carrie. We'll have to come back and do more and more as we learn.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I would love to. There's so much fun stuff to talk about with this. So absolutely, I can't wait. We'll come together when it's in alignment and in resonance, right? So
That
I look forward to
that's
that.
that's true. That's true.